So what does Alex Palou, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and Joey Logano have in common with one another? Let me tell you, they are all nominated for the 2025 EPSY Driver of the Year award. Now, I'm not making that up. They legitimately put Joey Logano in the same bracket, on the same level as Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and Alex Palou. Yeah, but you can't make this stuff up. Why? I'm assuming because he won the championship last year. But you got to put some things in context, okay? Number one, the dude was like 15th before the playoffs started, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, and he ended up winning the championship. Okay, NASCAR uses playoffs. They don't use a season-long championship like Formula One or IndyCar. Okay, it is a gimmicky system at best. Okay, this is not a legitimate season-long championship. And people can argue all they want to and try to say that it's still a legitimate championship. It's not. Okay, yes, he won by the rules that they play with. I get that. Good for him. That's great. But it's not a legitimate championship. It's just not. It's just not. We have 4 drivers come down to one race at the end of the season. That's how we define a champion. That's nonsense. Okay, this isn't basketball. It's not football. This is motor racing, supposedly. I mean, it's crazy to me. Crazy to me that you put Logano up against Max Verstappen. And if he wins that award, my God, people need to be vocal. Just put it that way about how corrupt the system is. If he ends up winning, by all rights he shouldn't. By all rights he shouldn't even be in the running. Anyways, if you enjoy listening to me ramble about motorsports, cars, or anything else in particular I feel like talking about, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, share the video, the works. As I've stated prior, we are in YouTube jail currently due to a copyright violation from back when we started this channel. Back before we knew what the heck we were doing. Man, I just made a mistake. Yeah, 100% I did. I've got no shame in admitting that. It was, yeah, I used someone's footage and I shouldn't have. That's on me, 100%. But for the time being, our reach is kind of limited. So if you would, spread the word, tell people, blah, 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 blah. I can't speak today. Tell people about our channel, that this is the #1 place for motorsports news on YouTube. The best channel out there. I'm just kidding, you don't have to tell them that. I mean, I think it's the best channel out there. But that's just me. If you're interested in auto parts, die-cast t-shirts, hats, racing memorabilia, if you're interested in home decor, lamps, it's just random knickknacks, action figures, stuff like that, check out our eBay. The link is in the description. We ship worldwide, not just domestic. So, but domestic shipping on at least on all of our auto parts is free. So check that out. Without further ado, let's get to yapping. So when my wife and I first met, I was not far removed from going through a contentious and nasty separation from my ex. And so, to put that in context, I was broke, okay? I had no money, flat broke. I was working for a dealership at the time, a little small mom and pop dealership. And we bought a 2007, I believe it was, Volvo V70. If you don't know what that is, it is the wagon, the big wagon. It's a cool looking car. It's supposed to be a luxury car, and at least it was for 2007. You know, we enjoyed it, had a lot of fun in that car. It drove great. was awesome. I always heard these things about Volvo. People would always say that Volvos are expensive cars, are expensive to have work done to them. And I was like, no, that can't be true. And let me tell you, it is true. They are expensive. It doesn't matter how old it is. They are expensive to have work done. At least they are in states. I don't know abroad, but stateside, Alabama, yes, they're expensive to have work done. But at the time we also had, so we bought that car for my wife to drive, but we also had a S40, and I think it was an S40. I think it was 2006, I believe is what it was. It was blue. It was a good looking little car, but when we bought the V70, I didn't like the wheels that were on it, so we switched the wheels for both cars. The wheels that were on the V70 were a little bit bigger, so it made the S40 look better. They were both black. And so anyways, we were flat broke, didn't have any money. After we got married, we couldn't really even afford to go on honeymoon. And so we went to the park one day, and we were living in downtown Birmingham at the time. And we went to the park one day, and they were doing some kind of maintenance work to the water pipes that are buried up underneath the ground. And so there was a little cut in the little drive. So like when you pull into the park, the drive goes in a loop, and then you just come back out the way that you came in. And there was a little cut in the ground for where the pipe was. Now it couldn't have been 5 inches deep, maybe, if that. And so I saw it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to drive over. It's not going to hurt anything. I wasn't going fast. I was going like 2 miles an hour because we were at the park. And I went over that thing, and that car, the front of it bottomed out. And it was pretty good whack. But I just assumed that we hit the cross member, and everything would probably be fine. I got out to check it, and I went around to the front, and I got up underneath it and looked, and it was like a geyser. Water was going everywhere. So the way that car was built, at least that one had been in a wreck prior and been rebuilt. So I don't know if it was built back to factory specs, but the radiator was mounted pretty low on that car, and the bottom of it was probably like that far off the ground. And so when we went over that bump, it bottomed out, and it actually sheared the bottom of the radiator off. And we were flat broke. Like I said, I couldn't afford to replace the radiator in that car. So my parents, as a wedding gift, bought me the radiator. We got it replaced and drove the car for a little while. My wife, she worked in a little town called Homewood, which is a little bit south of Birmingham. She was a hairstylist over there, and in Homewood, around where she worked, you parked on the side of the road. You didn't park in like a parking lot. And it's kind of like any other city. You park on the side of the road in designated parking spots. And someone came in one day and told her that that the car had been hit. And she's assuming that I was probably just a little ding, it ain't a big deal. Everyone went out there and got the guy's information. But no, when she went out there, what had happened was this guy had some sort of medical emergency. And I'm assuming he blacked out, and he ran into like 3 cars in front of where the Volvo was parked. And it shoved the whole line of cars back into the front of the Volvo. And the Volvo, it's submarined basically underneath the car that was in front of it because it was an SUV. And so it just peeled the top of the hood and everything back and busted the radiator, the brand new radiator that I had put in. And we got it home, and it was sitting in the alley. We were waiting for all the insurance stuff to process. I walked outside one day, and where we lived, we didn't really have a parking lot. You parked in the alley. It's a really old spot, really old block where that apartment building was. And anyways, I walked out there one day, and there was a note on the windshield. And I opened it up, and I looked, and this guy he was parked next door at the doctor's office, and when he backed up, he ran into the car while it was sitting in the alley and messed up the door. He left a note to his credit, and thank God that someone actually is being honest for a change, because normally stuff like that happens. People just drive away, especially if they turn around and they see that the car's already wrecked. They would just drive away, but no, he left a note with his information and everything and got that squared away. And then insurance process for the original accident, and they came and hauled the car off or whatever. But that's the only time in my life that I've owned a Volvo or 2 Volvos. And And they are fantastic. I love the way the Volvos look, especially like the 2000s and prior. Love the way that they look. However, mechanically speaking, they are not. The S40 we had a bunch of problems out of. A bunch of problems. It kept slinging belts. One of the pulleys ended up getting warped. How? To this day, I don't understand how, but it just from us driving it got warped and it would sling the belt off. I probably went through 4 or 5 belts within like a couple of weeks with that car. The coolant reservoir developed a leak. And I never could get that buttoned up. And I mean, it was just one thing after another with that car, so we ended up selling it. And then I bought a Buick. I took the money from the S40 and I bought a Buick Regal. It was 1993, blue. I bought it from this boy that lived in a pretty bad part of town, but they told me that the car had been his grandfather's and it had been parked in the garage. And just by looking at it, it looked good. Paint wasn't faded. It kind of looked like it was parked in a garage. But man, was it a pile of crap. That car spent more time broken down than I spent driving it. When we moved from Birmingham to Mobile, I drove that car down here, and it developed a transmission leak. Actually, let me back that up. It had a transmission leak prior to that. We couldn't figure out where it was coming from. When my grandfather passed away, he lived in Georgia. We went out there so my dad could scatter his ashes, and I drove that car to Georgia. And we went to my grandfather's house, and I pulled up the driveway and got out. There's a trail of transmission fluid from the road up behind where I parked. I drove from Birmingham all the way to Rockmart, Georgia, which is like a 2-hour drive. Maybe more than that. I'm not exactly sure. On the interstate, I'm sure spraying everyone behind me in the face with transmission fluid. And but good times. We ended up driving it down here to Mobile, and it finally gotten it running fairly decent. The transmission pan was loose, is what ended up being the problem. So we got that buttoned up, but we got it down here, and then she started running really bad again. And then the transmission, something happened with it. It burned up to the point where it actually caught fire, and so it got rid of it. I do miss that car though. It was. I don't know. There was just something about it. Like, it wasn't the prettiest car ever built. Okay, it kind of looked like something that an elderly person would drive. But you know, when you were driving it, and I've heard this about Buicks and stuff from that era. That's the only one I've ever driven, so I can't speak to like the Roadmaster and stuff like that. But I know the Regal, the one that I had, it was like driving on a cloud, man. Like, the suspension travel in that car was crazy. I mean, you go over a bump and it was like you never even hit anything. Now, it had no working AC, and the way that it was designed when you had the windows down, you got no airflow whatsoever. It was miserable in the summer, but I do miss that car. I do. So Bertone, I'm assuming that's how you say it, Bertone, it's a coach builder. We're a luxury car builder. It's similar to what AMG is with Mercedes, except it was more of a luxury, more than performance. But they were in partnership with Lamborghini, made a couple of cars. Speaking of that, I actually have on our eBay page some Bertone badges for Lamborghini, actually, if you need one, if you're hunting one. But anyways, I think they went belly up in 2015, 2016, somewhere in that ballpark. But I was reading earlier that the last car that they helped build, or the last car that they did build, designed, was it was kind of like this wedge-shaped. I think I read that they were trying to go after the Lancia Stratos with the design cues, but this is the concept car that they came up with is up for auction, or is heading to auction, I should say. It's always interesting to me when you look at concept cars. You know, almost every manufacturer builds them, and 9 times out of 10 these cars don't go into production. But if you look at some of these cars, you can clearly see design cues that do make their way onto production cars. That's not the case with the Bertone, and I may be wrong. I mean, there could be some Lamborghinis that have taken styling cues from this particular car. I'm not sure, but If you compare and contrast both this particular vehicle and those, they do kind of share a lot of similarities. Aside from the fact that the Bertone is absolutely hideous. Okay, and that's another thing about concept cars is 9 times out of 10 they're awful. And then the ones that do make it into production, it's just baffling to me. The VW bus that's been brought back, that's been put into production. To me, the new one is terrible. I don't like the way that it looks. I don't like the fact. I think it's electric too. I do not like electric vehicles. I'm sorry. You can hate me if you want, but I cannot stand electric vehicles, period. I love their performance. I will say that, their acceleration, stuff like that. I do like that. That's about the only thing. I would take a combustion engine over an EV any day of the week. And maybe that makes me a dinosaur. I don't know. But that's just where I am. And I think that with the Volkswagen bus, it's a similar thing. I'm not really super crazy about the old ones, to be honest, but I do think they're far and away better than the new thing that they came out with. But some of these concept cars that make it in production, it's just baffling. And then you look at the ones that are left on the cutting room floor. The Dodge concept, for instance, from the late 90s, was a wicked looking car. And I think it would have sold well, but then you look at other concepts like the Prowler that made it into production, and it's like, what were we thinking? Or the Chevy, I think it was SSR, that was a cross between a pickup truck and a car. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Not a good looking vehicle. It wasn't. It didn't have a whole. It had. Okay, let me clarify. Because there's a lot of people I know that like those trucks, cars, whatever you want to call them. Performance-wise, yes, they were good. Longevity-wise, no, they were terrible. And they didn't look good. I'm sorry, but they didn't. They didn't look good at all. It's interesting. It's just interesting that's what we put that's what got the green light. But then when you leave things like the Dodge concept, that's never going to see the light of day. As far as being mass produced. I don't know. I would kill to be a fly on the wall in some of these board meetings with these manufacturers to see the decision making process. I'm sure they base it off of numbers, and I'm sure they have more information than I do. I'm just an outsider giving my opinion from outside looking in. It's just where I fall on it. But anyways, it looks like the IROC cars are going to hit the track once again. I think this is only the second time since Ray Evernham bought into the ownership team of IROC. I may be wrong on that, don't quote me, but this is only the second time I've known of him running since he took over August, I think 13th through 16th at Laguna Seca. They're going to be part of the historic reunion weekend there where, they're going to have a whole bunch of old cars racing. Porsches and things like that. And it's really cool. I love the IROC series, and I really hope that they make a concerted effort to bring it back in the form, in its original form. Not just like these one-off kind of for show things that they've been doing, where we bring out a bunch of different cars from different eras and run. I would love to see the legitimate IROC series back, where we actually take current prominent drivers from all different series and throw them in these cars and run. And, that was the whole point of SRX, and I think from a fan's perspective, SRX was fun to watch. I don't know from a commercial perspective, obviously it didn't do that great because it's gone now, but I would love to see that back, man, with the IROC cars. And just build new stuff, man. Just build new cars that look, build Camaros or something. I don't know, but something similar to that effect would be cool. I also want to talk about Yuki Tsunoda. My wife and I were watching Formula One this morning at, I think they're at the Red Bull Ring. Yeah, I think it's in Austria, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. And we were watching them do practice lap stuff, and Yuki came out in the second Red Bull and was all over the place. And you could tell the commentators mentioned it, that he was overdriving the car. And that's true, you can tell that he is. But I imagine that car's probably a handful, because it's been a handful for everybody who's driven it. Now, he's consistently, ever since he's taken over that car, unless he has a bad crash in qualifying like he did a couple weeks ago, he's consistently been around 7th, 8th, or 9th in that car. And I think that proves, as bad as that car has been, for everyone who's driven it, as bad as it's been, if you were to put Yuki in a car that's capable of running up front, I think he could do it. The only problem is that going to happen? He likely won't be with Red Bull after this season. If I had to hedge my bets, I would say that he will not be with Red Bull following 2025. So where's he going to go? Is he going to go to Cadillac? Is he going to go to Aston? Since they're switching to Honda. Honda power plants, I should say. To me, that would make more sense. Like Lance Stroll finally stepping out of Formula One, or Fernando retiring. One of those things that would make more sense. But I would love to see Yuki get a shot. And everyone says this. Well, there's always an excuse why he doesn't run up front. Okay, but the fact remains is that the Racing Bull cars are not supposed to be front-running cars. That's not the purpose of that team, is not to be a front-running team. I know they've won races, but that's been here. It's been very sparse, and so it's intended to help build drivers and get them comfortable with racing in Formula One before they move on to the flagship team. Okay, but the flagship team has been built around Max, and so the second car has been garbage for anyone else who's driven it. For anyone who's driven it. Okay, it's not making excuses for Yuki. It's just the facts of the matter, and that's what it is. Could Yuki perform at a championship level with a team that has a car capable of running up front? I think that's the $1 million question, and it's something I would love to see answered by putting him in a car that's good enough to do that. Now, Aston, they've got Honda coming next year, and they've also got Adrian Newey. And Adrian Newey, basically every car that he's touched has been successful. He's not worked on the car this year, from my understanding. The bulk of his focus has been on 2026 and getting the Aston ready to hit the ground running in 26 with the Honda engines. So it would stand to reason that the 2026 Aston is going to be a hell of a race car. And, you would imagine that Honda would want a Japanese driver in the seat. It's a Japanese company, Japanese driver, kind of goes hand in hand. I don't know. I would wager that's going to be where Yuki ends up next season. That I would bet the farm on the fact that he's not going to be with Red Bull anymore. They'll probably put Hadger in that second seat, and that's going to be that. And they'll find somebody else to fill in the Racing Bull seat that Isaac leaves open, but it won't be Yuki. And if I'm Yuki, I wouldn't want to go back to Racing Bull anyways, because you're never going to have a shot to win races on a consistent basis, or at all. It's just one of those things. And you can see that he's currently trying too hard in that car, because the car is just garbage. And it's not garbage. I say that it's obviously pretty good because it's beating half the field every weekend. But I don't know. I just want to see him in a good car. I want to see if he's actually got the capability. I'd hate to see him ride off into the sunset and do something different because he hasn't gotten that opportunity. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Also, by the way, excuse my voice. We live in Mobile, and pollen is everywhere right now. Everywhere. And I don't do good with pollen. I've lived here almost my entire life, and I still can't tolerate pollen. It screws me up, man. Anyways, if you enjoyed listening to me ramble about cars, about motorsports, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, share this video, tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. I also want to give a shout out to my friends in Brazil and Japan. You guys are awesome. Had some folks reach out to me this week, and so it means a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching our content. We're going to upload some more stuff as the weekend progresses, as there's some more racing going on. Speaking of Brazil, I do want to say, that the Brazilian stock car racing series is one of the coolest series on the planet, man. You know, they had, I guess you just call them stock cars, but it was like their version of stock cars. And now they have these cars that are similar to wagons or like hatchbacks. And they're the coolest looking cars I think I've ever seen in my life. And if you haven't watched any of their races, you need to, because the stuff is intense, man. It's touring car racing essentially now. It's essentially what it is. And it's fantastic. That and the truck racing series. You know, they have the British racing series, and they have the ETRC, the European Truck Racing Championship. And then Brazil has their own version of that as well. And again, I'm not trying to suck up to anybody, but I think the Brazilian version is far more entertaining than the European and the British. Not that they're not entertaining. They all are. I just, you know, lean more towards the Brazilian version because those trucks are just cool, man. And they've got all these different aero tweaks on them. You know, they got these little attachments. I mean, they're just cool. If you haven't watched any of that stuff, do yourself a favor. You will not regret it. And one more thing before I go. If anyone knows where you can watch the French version of Top Gear in America, please let me know. I've spent like hours last night trying to find it. Just because I haven't watched it. I've watched every other version of Top Gear. That's the only one that I haven't seen. No, I can't speak French, but I'll wing it. But I can't figure out where to watch it at. So let me know. If you're interested in die-cast, t-shirts, hats, auto parts, any of that kind of stuff, make sure to check out our eBay. We do. See, my voice is going out. It's that flipping pollen, man. Anyways, we do domestic shipping, free domestic shipping on parts. And then we do international shipping as well to every corner of the planet. So, except for Antarctica. But everyone else is covered. So, make sure to check that out. I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, we'll see you. Peace.
És 100 fölfele. 100 fölfele, jobb 2 tempó, 20-ra bal 2 tempó, 25-ra bal 2 tempó, 25-re bal 2 szűk, bal 2 szűk, és bal 2, és bal 2, majd 50-re jobb 2, itt a bal 2, és 50-re jobb 2, majd szűk 50-re jobb 3 az aszfaltra, szűk 50-re jobb 3 az aszfaltra.